Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start this video with a story about a parking enforcement job that turned into a security nightmare. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Park here, get towed. It's literally on the sign. I work for a small security company in a building that only has 6 parking spots. 6, that's it. And they're all clearly marked with signage that reads, company name, parking only, 24/7, unauthorized vehicles will be towed. We're not a storefront, there are 0 customers, and every spot is designated for our employees, period. It's not like we're hiding this either. The signs are huge and mounted right in front of each other. Still, for some reason, the apartment building attached to us treats our lot like their personal overflow parking. It's become a recurring issue. Tenants or their guests will pull into our lot, ignore the signs, and go about their day like nothing's wrong. I don't know if they think the rules don't apply to them or if they just hope we won't notice, but as someone whose job literally includes monitoring the lot and enforcing our policy, I absolutely notice. Our deterrent process is pretty simple. If someone parks in our spots and they're not supposed to be there, I slap a bright orange violation sticker on their driver's side window and immediately call the tow company we contract with. It's not some idle threat. We follow through. Last Friday, I walked out and spotted a car clearly from the apartment complex parked in one of our designated spots. No permit, no company decal. I checked our logs just to be sure, then grabbed a sticker and headed out to do what I'm paid to do. Just as I finished putting the violation sticker on the window, I called the towing company like usual. They asked for the license plate number, so I stepped back outside to grab that and also figured I'd swing by my own car to get something I'd forgotten earlier. Right as I'm walking across the lot, I see the car's owners coming back, 2 people, a man and a woman, clearly annoyed. And by annoyed, I mean furious. The guy immediately starts yelling at me, demanding to know why I stickered his car. I calmly explained that the lot is private property, clearly marked and reserved 24/7 for company vehicles only. He snapped back with the classic excuse, "We were only parked for 5 minutes." Ah, yes, the magical 5 minutes defense. What they didn't realize, ironically, since they were yelling at a security employee, is that our building has cameras covering the entire lot from multiple angles. I'd already reviewed the footage. They'd been there over 20 minutes, not 5. I didn't bother arguing that point. I just told them, you can explain that to the tow truck driver if they arrive before you leave. They didn't like that. A few minutes later, while I was back at my desk inside, they came to the front of the building and started pounding on our office window like angry teenagers trying to get a teacher's attention. I ignored them and went back to work. But then they did something that sent a chill down my spine. They walked back into the lot and started taking pictures of my car, multiple angles, front, back, sides. That's when the nervous energy kicked in. That wasn't just someone trying to dispute a towing, that felt personal. I had a pit in my stomach. This guy was absolutely seething, and now he was documenting my vehicle? Not for any official dispute, but like he was prepping to do something stupid. Now, I try not to jump to conclusions, but the whole thing felt like a threat. I'm not just an employee here. I drive that car home and park it outside my own building. If he decides to key it, flatten the tires, or worse, that's going to be on me personally. Of course, the whole encounter, including the window banging and photo taking, is all on our security cameras. We reviewed the footage and saved a copy. I flagged it for my supervisor and let the tow company know what happened, just in case something escalates later. I also moved my car to a different spot for the next few days and started checking on it frequently. Here's the thing that baffles me. The guy was clearly in the wrong. He parked in a private lot that had multiple signs saying he wasn't allowed to. He wasn't there for 5 minutes. He knew the risk and did it anyway. But instead of apologizing or even walking away quietly, he doubled down and acted like I was the villain. That's the kind of entitlement that makes you wonder what goes through some people's heads. I'm not going to stop doing my job. If people don't want their cars towed, maybe they shouldn't park where it literally says they'll get towed. But yeah, I'm definitely watching my car a little more closely these days. I'm sure they didn't even think about what type of company you work for. And they might have a poor sense of time and actually believe they were only there for 5 minutes. But none of that matters. They parked in private spots with a tow warning. And our second story. Entitled neighbor insists my private driveway is public, gets proven wrong, and rage quits the neighborhood. My wife and I decided a while back that we'd had enough of city life. The endless noise, constant traffic, and cramped living spaces finally pushed us to fulfill our long-held dream of buying a home in the countryside surrounded by nature. After a thorough search, we found our ideal place, a charming house nestled in the middle of a dense, serene forest. We immediately fell in love and jumped at the opportunity. Our nearest neighbor lived about 400 meters away, separated by a beautiful grove of trees. Our property featured a driveway that historically had been part of a road connecting our house to the neighbors and ultimately to two parallel main roads. However, nature had long since reclaimed it, and the road had officially become private during the privatization wave of the 1990s in our country. We loved this feature. It was secluded, quiet, and provided the perfect privacy we'd always dreamed of. All was peaceful until last summer when someone bought the neighboring property. One day, while enjoying my morning coffee, I heard the unexpected crunch of gravel. Surprised, I stepped outside and saw an unfamiliar car driving through our driveway. Without hesitation, I hopped outside and jumped in front of the car, motioning the driver to stop. Inside was a woman who seemed bewildered by my intervention. "Excuse me," I said calmly, "but this is a private road. Can I help you with something?" She rolled down her window with an irritated sigh. "Oh, don't worry. I bought the house behind yours. I'm just using the road to reach my property quicker. It connects right to my land." "That's not an option, unfortunately," I replied firmly, maintaining composure. "There's a sign clearly stating that this is a private driveway, entry by permission only." "Yeah, I saw your little sign," she snapped dismissively, "but I looked it up. Back in the 50s, this was a public road." I raised an eyebrow at her audacity. It hadn't been public for decades, and it was privatized in the 90s. That's how I bought it. So respectfully, it's no longer public, and you're not allowed to use it without my permission. She huffed and narrowed her eyes at me. "That's incredibly selfish of you. How are we supposed to get to our house easily? You have no right to block this road." "Actually, I have every legal right," I replied firmly, though striving to remain polite. "If you like, I can show you the papers proving it. But either way, you can't drive through here." Clearly angry, she threw up her hands in frustration. "You're being a complete a-hole." "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way," I replied with a sigh, "but that doesn't change the situation. Please don't drive through here again." A few days later, my phone rang. It was a call from the local district office, someone clearly prompted by my new neighbor's complaints. The official introduced himself and started gently. "Hello, sir. We received a complaint regarding your property. It seems there's a dispute about access to the neighboring property." "There's no dispute," I responded evenly. "It's a private road on private property. We bought it specifically for privacy." "I understand," he responded cautiously, "but wouldn't it be neighborly and kind to allow them easier access to their new home?" I took a deep breath before responding. "Sir, with all due respect, the road was privatized nearly 30 years ago. My neighbors have other legal means of accessing their property. We bought this property specifically for the privacy. Allowing them through would completely defeat that purpose." He hesitated, seeming sympathetic but obligated to mediate. "I understand your point, sir. Maybe there's room for compromise?" "I'm afraid there isn't." I insisted politely but firmly. "My privacy is not negotiable, and I have no obligation to accommodate their preference simply because it's more convenient." The official eventually conceded, ending the call after confirming my rights were indeed protected. For weeks, I felt tense every time I saw the neighbor's car pass on the main road, expecting more confrontations or even further legal threats. Yet, surprisingly, things quieted down. Then, about 2 months later, I noticed a for sale sign placed on my neighbor's property. I later learned through local gossip that the woman had found the countryside too isolated and unfriendly. The inconvenience of her self-created dispute likely sped up her decision to move. Within a few weeks, the property sold at a price significantly lower than expected, and the new owners, a friendly young couple who valued their own privacy, introduced themselves and expressed appreciation for clear boundaries. As a gesture of goodwill, I even helped them put up their own fencing, clearly marking the property lines to everyone's satisfaction. Life returned to the peaceful dream we'd envisioned, free from unwanted shortcuts, nosy intrusions, and best of all, without a Karen in sight. I'm a little skeptical, though, seeing as you got a call from the district office. Wouldn't they have access to the information and have been able to tell your neighbors that it was indeed a private road, if it is in fact a private road? Why even bother calling you? That's the only part that seems off. And our last story. No, Karen, I'm not in your HOA. So this happened back in the late 90s when I was fresh out of the Navy and looking to settle down. I'd saved up enough for a modest house in a quiet suburban area, one of those neighborhoods with older homes, big yards, and plenty of trees. Nothing fancy, but it felt like home the minute I stepped in. The day after I moved in, while I was unloading tools from my truck, she appeared, power walking toward me like she owned the street. You know the type, bob haircut, designer sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and a face that said she hadn't smiled since Reagan was in office. "Hi, I'm Karen. I'm on the HOA board for our lovely community. I just need you to sign some welcome forms and go over the community rules with you." Now, I knew for a fact the property I bought wasn't part of an HOA. I had my real estate paperwork, title docs, everything in black and white, so I politely said, "No thanks, I'm not part of the HOA." She blinked. "Oh, every house in this area is in the HOA." "Nope," I said. "My house was built before your HOA was even formed. Never opted in, so there's no legal tie to it." Her smile cracked a little. "Well, we can just add you. Everyone needs to follow the same rules." That's when I got a little firm. You can't add me to a contract I never agreed to. That's not how that works. She left in a huff, muttering about people not being team players. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Over the next week, I started getting letters, no postage, just hand-delivered to my mailbox, violation notices for things like non-HOA compliant garbage bins and unauthorized flagpole. I even got dinged for my non-standard mailbox, which, by the way, was a perfectly normal black mailbox sold at every hardware store in America. On Saturday, Karen showed up again, clipboard in hand, this time with 2 other board members, both looking equally smug. They handed me a packet saying I must join the HOA or face legal action. That's when I'd had enough. I told them point blank, "You step foot on my property again uninvited, I'll treat it like trespassing. You don't have authority over me, and you never will." Karen snorted, "You threatening us with a lawsuit?" "No," I said, and walked to my porch. I retrieved my old service-issued sidearm from inside the house, holstered of course, and came back out just long enough to say, "I'm threatening you with Texas property law. You want to call the cops? Go right ahead." That did it. Karen screamed, "You'll be arrested. We'll sue you. You just threatened board members with a weapon." What did I do? I called the police myself, explained everything. When the officer showed up, I gave him the full rundown, property records, non-HOA status, even the harassing notes. Karen and company tried to play the victim, but the officer wasn't buying it. He asked them if they had any legal documentation tying me to the HOA. They didn't. Not a shred. "Ma'am," the officer told Karen, "if you keep harassing this man or trespassing on his property, he has every right to file charges." So I did one better. I got a lawyer, filed for a restraining order on grounds of harassment and attempted coercion, took every note in violation to court. Judge sided with me without blinking. Restraining order granted. But here's where the real win happened. Turns out Karen had abused her position on the HOA board before, strong-armed new residents, fining people for unapproved paint colors, even trying to charge fees for garage sales. Once word got out that she tried to force someone into the HOA illegally and got slapped with a restraining order, the rest of the neighborhood had it. Next board meeting, she was voted out, publicly, loudly. A few months later, her house went up for sale. As for me, I still live here, still have my flagpole, still have my mailbox, and still gloriously not in the HOA. It was Karen who started the trend of, "You are a member of a non-existent HOA." I think her children also started doing this kind of crap. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.